One of the things I want to get your opinion on is, and I've said this for a long time, I'm a chartered investment manager. You're a lawyer. We belong to professional associations. They get to determine the standard. They get to determine whether you get to keep your license to practice what you've spent years and however many hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire your expertise, your experience. This, to me, is nothing but an experiment in control. Because if I can take away doctors, even the doctors who wanted to speak out during COVID were handcuffed because they had to choose between putting food on the table for their children and their careers, which they've spent a lifetime putting themselves in a position to finally get there. And now they're faced with an organization, an institution that says, no, we're going to revoke your license. How do we move forward? How do we get, because again, oh, well, if we don't have licensing and registration, there's going to be chaos and havoc. And how do we regulate people to ensure that, they do the right thing? What are your thoughts around licensing and registration, and how do we move away from that? Because I think it also stifles innovation and creativity and, honestly, real cures for diseases and real solutions for real problems.
No, I agree with you. Those who are ignorant of history will not understand that we had doctors practicing medicine and lawyers practicing law and accountants practicing the accounting professions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for centuries and centuries and centuries without a formal licensing body. You didn't have, in the United Kingdom, where our common law heritage and tradition comes from there. You did not have, the Law Society of England that was, making, saying, well, if you're not a member of our society, you can't practice law. So it's good for, I believe in freedom of association. So if a bunch of lawyers want to get together and say, we are the Association of Really Good Lawyers, they're going to have more clever wording than that. But if they want to say, we're the best, they can go ahead and do that. And people can choose to say, well, I only want to deal with a lawyer who's a member of the Association of Really Good Lawyers, right? But what's happened is that these bodies have taken over and said, you cannot practice the profession at all unless you're a member. And even that was not necessarily a huge problem 50 years ago, but now that ideology has crept in, you see this horrible situation where medical doctors are trying to engage in the scientific process, which involves healthy debate, where you ask questions like, are lockdowns actually saving lives? Yes or no? And if yes, what evidence do you have to support that? Is this vaccine really safe and effective? And, here are reasons as to, there's no long-term safety data. It's not stopping people from getting sick. Maybe we should have a debate about whether the vaccine is safe and effective or not, or to what extent, to what degree. And then you've got the medical association shutting down debate, which is anti-science. They're still doing it today. You've had a report come out in January, which was a comprehensive deep dive into the Alberta government's response to COVID. And you have this denounced in vitriolic language by people who you can tell they haven't read the report at all. It's a short 100-word statement, 3 or 4 sentences, saying that Premier Smith should completely disregard the report and reject all of its conclusions because it's written by a bunch of anti-science Neanderthals who don't know what they're talking about. And this is the level of debate that we see. So long-term solution is that these associations should be free to exist, but they shouldn't be able to prevent people from choosing. So, well, maybe I want to deal with a doctor who's not a member of this association of really good doctors that's kind of self-anointed, self-appointed guardians of the profession. Maybe I want to deal with a different doctor. And people should have the right to deal with different professionals. Absolutely.
But now the government will tell you, we're not taking your right away from dealing with those professionals or those individuals. But what they do is they throw the person who's practicing medicine without a law or without a degree or license in jail. So you see this in the securities world, right? With financial planning and with securities. Oh, you're dealing in a security. You've done a transaction with you and a group of little friends. Now you're dealing in a security. And even though you as an individual, you have the right to do that, they go after. So let's take a look at the convoy. You have Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. They're now, the Crown is throwing everything at these two. 7 years, they're proposing they should throw them in jail. And I look at that and I go, here we have the politicalization, you know what I mean, of the judicial system. And we've politicized this, and now we've turned it into a weapon. So licensing, registration, our courts, these are all being used as weapons against individuals who have a difference of opinion or are speaking out, or who want to challenge the narrative, the authority. And, you mentioned that, wasn't a problem 50 years ago, but they know this. Like, I don't think that, this march towards this neo-Marxism has been overnight. It's been a gradual chipping away at freedoms and education and our systems and infiltration. And they know that, you can't boil the frog too fast, right? But if you do it just a degree at a time, nobody's going to jump out of the pot. So I think it was a problem 50 years ago, which is why